We are going to talk about a movie.
This is gonna be a disaster.
It was one of the best movies of the year.
It's gonna go so well. Probably one of the last movies I would ever want to see in a theater. What is going on, everybody? Taylor here.
And Jacob.
And we are going to be talking about Game of Thrones. It has been a couple weeks since we've been able to sit down and talk Game of Thrones. But with one episode left to come next week, we're going to recap the last 3 episodes that we've missed talking about.
So we missed the Battle for Winterfell.
Yeah.
Last week's
The Last of the Starks,
Yep.
I think.
And then I have no idea what this
This one
was
was
called.
The Bell,
The Bell.
I believe,
Okay.
or The Bells. It was The Bell or The Bells. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I've seen some people talking about.
Yeah, a fairly universally well-received episode.
Yes,
yeah.
like most of the season.
Yes, absolutely universally well-received and very
if by
beloved.
universally well received you mean inside this apartment, then yes. So I think we should start with the Battle of Winterfell, kind of talking about how we both feel about that episode and then work our way up, because we got to start somewhere and there's a lot to talk about.
There is. So the Battle of Winterfell came out 2 weeks ago. Probably one of the more famous takeaways from that episode has been how dark it was.
Yes.
Okay, real quick thoughts. I loved it. I do agree it was a little dark. It is definitely an episode that I'm thinking I can't wait to rewatch when I have it on Blu-ray, because I think we got the limitations of streaming.
Yeah. And
that was the episode that really showcased, hey, this is what happens when you stream.
Yeah.
Your blacks aren't that good. The color just isn't there.
The compression overall just sometimes suffers.
So it's one of those episodes that I think that HBO were like, hey, maybe you should get the box and don't use our streaming service. Get the box instead. But other than that, I'm really looking forward to seeing that one on Blu-ray again and actually going through that episode.
Any other thoughts?
Overall, I really loved it. I thought I really loved that this was all right, this is it. It's one episode. And now that we've seen the context now, looking back,
yeah.
It makes more sense that no, the long night ended there.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it did. I'm starting to understand the discussion of, hey, maybe this season could have maybe been over 2 episodes. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But I'm kind of okay with it just being an extended episode where they just did it as it's just one big battle, and it worked for me like that.
Well, and there is a lot of discussion too around the fact that a lot of people are firmly of the belief this season should have been a lot longer, since it was the last season and they still had so much to discover and so much to kind of flesh out before we get to the end, which in fairness, we don't even know what the end is going to look like, what their end game for the TV show as its own entity is going to look like. But seeing it now with only 1 episode left, I don't think there would have been any issues if they would have put 2, 3, 4 more episodes in there just to give it a little bit more breathing room. But then again, personally, I don't really have a problem with how the pacing has been going. I think it's worked really well for this last season. But it'll be interesting to look back on all this again once we do have that series finale episode.
Yeah.
But in regards to the Battle of Winterfell, yes, it was very dark. Us, personally, we didn't have a lot of issues with not actually being able to see what was going on. I think you and I, it was dark, but there weren't a lot of instances where we were turning to each other not really able to see anything at all, like the memes where it's just a black screen that people posted about it and things like that. But I really enjoyed the way it was shot, because it did feel very chaotic, and it very much felt like you were witnessing the Battle of Winterfell as they would have seen it, where you can't really 100% tell exactly what's going on. It doesn't look artificially lit, where you don't really believe that it's happening in the middle of the night, in the middle of a winter, where there isn't much natural light. And I think that we got a lot of building blocks from that episode, and I think that you're right, it was a very good, definite way to kind of shut the door on the Night King and that chapter of it. And I think that there are some people who were disappointed that to them it seems like the White Walkers and the Army of the Dead overall in the grand scheme of things didn't mean anything. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that the show is very much presenting that, yes, that was a big threat, but it's always about the Game of Thrones. It's always about the fight for the Iron Throne.
And, well, it just, especially now that we've seen the context of these last 2 episodes, and it gives us benefit of doing this episode, is that we can provide that context. The White Walkers, all they served was bringing Jon and Daenerys together.
Yeah.
That was their main role. And it was to make sure that all these characters who shouldn't be together
Fighting
are together.
for a common cause.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it gave them a purpose, and it gave them a thing, and I'm okay with that. That's storytelling. That's just storytelling.
Right, and it was highlighted in the episode before that too, where Tyrion, I think it's Tyrion, says, we're here together in Winterfell. Like
all of at one point, all of us have tried to kill the Starks, and now we're here we are fighting for them. Yeah.
But I think that episode in particular was, I know that I don't know how I want to phrase this. There's a lot that happened in that episode that people think tactically doesn't make sense for the way that they took on the Walkers and took on the Army of the Dead, and kind of how it was a giant mess in parts of them trying to defend Winterfell. But I personally wasn't taken out of the episode by anything like that. I thought that it was written well. I liked the way that it presented them really struggling to beat this army, because I get that maybe some people thought they should have been a little better with their planning, and maybe it shouldn't have been as difficult, but I personally thought that was the whole point of the Army of the Dead, is really no matter what you do, you're screwed, basically.
Yeah, basically, if you try, you're stuffed.
You're toast.
I did really like. I've heard people complain about Jon as a strategist. This series has kind of shown Jon isn't the greatest strategist. Yeah. He isn't. That's not his strength. His strength is he is Ned Stark's son. As much as while he isn't, he is.
He was raised
by Ned Stark, so he has essentially become. He is Ned Stark's son in terms of, I am just good and I do what I believe is the right thing to do, and I think that this series now has really, really emphasized that on Jon.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's tough because while I can partially understand the criticism, I agree he wasn't raised to be the strategist, and he's learned to fight because he had to, and he's become a great swordsman, and those are the skills he has because, at the Wall, he had to learn those things, but he never was really taught strategy, and he didn't grow up as really one of the Starks trying to learn strategy. He wasn't raised to be a king or a commander of an army or anything like that. And I think a lot of the energy of him and a lot of people in the castle was, how do we figure out how to get all of these people who have never fought together, never thought they'd have to fight together? How do we get this to work where we can all fight together? And all these people have such different backgrounds of how they would fight, or what their moral compass when it comes to fighting is, or it's just so fascinating to me that you could even pull together that many people.
Yeah, I do really love how they handled all these characters being together in the fight, where you saw characters who were fighting together in ways you'd never expect.
Right.
I love how they handled Theon and Jorah.
Yeah.
I thought they were really well done. Lyanna Mormont going out the way she did was
completely true to her character.
It was, and it was perfect for that character. Same with Jorah, and the deaths that we got in that episode were impactful because it was the end of their story.
Right.
Like their story ended there, and that's why I liked those deaths. And none of them felt cheap.
Right. I agree with that. And I think that the way that they balanced the actual fighting with the very small bits of politics that we got was great. We didn't see too much focus on, oh wait, but Daenerys and Jon are still fighting about XYZ or anything like that.
I liked that the whole mindset was, no, they're there, we need to do something. And I did like that. I mean, our biggest complaint going in was, oh God, that's gonna affect something. And there were moments where you thought maybe they would, and it didn't. And I really appreciated that it didn't.
Well, like the moment we were talking about with the dragon.
Yeah.
Where there was a mix-up of, oh crap, does Daenerys think that Jon just tried to knock her off
the
dragon or little things like that?
Yeah, so something like that where we thought, oh, she might take her opportunity or something. And then we got the context in the next episode, and that's what I loved.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts of this episode, and it was one of the bigger controversies, which I don't understand, and a lot of issues I've had with trying to talk about this last season with a lot of people, is we come from very, very different viewpoints of how we see character arcs being completed and whether or not they're actually being fulfilled the way that they should be. To me, they have been, and we still are having Arya Stark's arc. She's not done yet from what we've seen, but in this episode in particular, I think it made 100% sense for her to be the one to take down the Night King.
It did. To me, it made 100% sense, and it paid off the prophecy from one of the earlier seasons.
Yeah, from Melisandre about killing people with blue eyes, which she repeats in that episode when they come face to face. It very much brings full circle that time that they met when she was told they would meet again.
Yep.
And it also puts stock in the fact that, all this training that she's been going through and all this trauma of being on the other side of the world and, being separated from the lifestyle she knew and everyone that she knew, and having to basically learn to become a warrior in not the way that she wanted, because she's always wanted to be able to wield a sword and fight. But this was a completely different way than I think she ever expected to have to do it. But she's trained for so long and has kind of lived this life that none of the others really understand or have come close to having to go through. And for her to have those really specific, special, unique skills, it makes complete sense that she would be the one to do it. Yeah,
and I did like the way they handled that, with Theon running in, sacrificing himself essentially, and then Arya going in, and the Night King kind of being taken off guard, was not really expecting it. I did like the way they handled that. The one scene that I was kind of hoping that maybe we were going to, not hoping, when Jon stands up to the Ice Dragon.
Yeah.
I was really expecting that would be the evidence Daenerys needed.
Because he would be unburnt by the Ice Dragon.
Yeah, and I thought that would be the evidence that and there goes, he's unburnt. Oh my God, he is a Targaryen.
Yeah.
And I thought that could have been an interesting way to go. Obviously, they didn't, and that's fine. I might have put that one there if I was working on the series.
That's fair enough. One of the other, now that I'm looking back on it and have had a few weeks to sit and think about it, one of the scenes that really, really stuck with me was that whole sequence we get with Arya, just wandering through the abandoned parts, not knowing if she's gonna, what she's gonna encounter. It was basically like a little horror.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, that was really well done, and we kind of got part 2 of that in today's episode, but we'll get back.
It was a little less eerie.
Yeah.
Today, that to me was just one of those. It's dark. It's very quiet. She doesn't know what's around the corner, and there was a moment where she's under the table where I was just like, oh no,
this could be it. This could be where she goes.
I thought another good full circle moment was when she gets saved at the very end of it.
Yep.
We got the ending of his arc, which I thought, you can see one of the things I love that we're getting with Arya now is these moments where these relationships that she's had over the past couple seasons, you're actually seeing them pay off in really great ways, where she has gone through a lot of things with a lot of these characters that you probably wouldn't have expected at the beginning of the series. And to me, they're just so special in those little tiny moments that we've been getting, which we'll touch on again when we get to...
Well, and I mean, Beric's death came full circle again as well in terms of... So I've seen some people complaining online going, oh, well, you know, why did the Lord of Light bring him back? To keep Arya alive. Yeah, that was his that was literally his purpose, was in that moment, he had to be there.
Yeah.
He had to be there to keep Arya alive, and that was his purpose. So the Lord of Light was bringing him back. We still don't know why Jon...
We don't know, which is a theory that you and I have been tossing around before we before we got to where we are now. If he was going to die, it would have to be
doing something for the Lord of Light. Now, at the moment, we haven't seen... So that's why I'm still not 100... Like, some people have gone, Lord of Light's out of it now. Like, that whole... All the magic stuff's out. It's just political. And I'm not 100% convinced there, because we've still got Bran and we've still got... The show hasn't explained why Jon came back.
No, and that's why I'm still believing there might be something that we haven't quite gotten to with that yet, just because we lost Melisandre and haven't really seen, you know, anything that would lead us to believe that the Lord of Light is still playing a big part. We don't know for sure, because just with the way storytelling works and has worked in this show especially, there has to be a payoff for why Jon was brought
back. And like you know, the complaints we've been seeing a lot is, you know, oh, it's rushed, it's not the story, it's bad writing. It's Shakespearean type writing. Like the storytelling is Shakespearean in it. We're being, you know, we've set up something in scene 2, Act 1, that we're not paying off until Act 5. And
we're going to pay off exactly what we told you we were going to
Exactly.
pay off.
And that's why I think there's other people are getting disappointed, because, you know, they're thinking, oh, they're going to pay it off like this. And then they either do it like that and people go, oh, well, you didn't surprise me. Yeah. Or they do find a way to subvert that and you're going, oh, but I didn't want that for the character. Now, we have one of those... I'm like that with Jaime. Yeah. I didn't like how they handled it. Well, I wasn't a fan of what they did with Jaime in this final episode.
Which we'll talk about.
We'll talk about. But that's the show. Like you go where the show takes you. And
I think that I would be very curious to see an alternate reality where the books had already been finished and see how people would receive it if it exactly followed the books, like the rest of the show pretty much has, for the most part, up to the point of where the books have been finished. I don't know. To me, I think about that a lot, and I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder
people would
how they would react. Yeah, it's very interesting, because I mean, it's fascinating to me.
It's fascinating to me too, especially since it's. I don't know, to me, and I don't know if it's made a difference for me, because you and I have watched this show very differently. I watched up to season 3, 4.
I think you were 4. I think you got to the end of 4.
Through the end of season 4, and then I stopped watching just because I had other stuff going on, never got back. Life happened, and I didn't catch up again. And I binge watched the whole thing, caught up to what I needed to catch up to, literally like the day before this new season started. And I wonder if that had an impact on me at all, because you watched it.
Well, I've basically watched every season live, except from season 3 onwards.
Right. So I don't know. That's also something I think about, is I wonder if the way people watch it kind of has an impact on how they feel about it. But
yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I've been really happy with this last season so far. Like, there have been small little things, which once again we'll talk about Jaime in that respect, because that's a good example of it. But there's little small things where I've looked at and gone, I don't know about that. But I haven't felt this overwhelming just anger and disappointment that a lot of people seem to be feeling. Yeah,
and I mean, we can move on to what I think. See, okay, so the Long Night is, to me, one of the weaker episodes of the season, but I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like I have really enjoyed this season.
Yeah.
Episode 2 is still my favorite episode of the season.
Episode 2 was so good.
It is
good.
one of my favorite episodes of the show in general.
Oh, easy.
And
Easy.
I thoroughly enjoyed last week, the Last of the Starks.
I did too.
I did too. Look, there are decisions that characters make that frustrate me and annoyed me, and I was sitting at the screen yelling, going, "Why are you doing that?" And then you go, "No, you're doing that because that is who you are." And
Right.
the show has shown us
That's
in the
who you
past
are.
that is who you are. And then there was other ones where you thought, "Oh no, it's a double meaning," and it didn't end up being a double meaning, or there are decisions that were made that are being paid off in this week's episode that either frustrated me, annoyed me, but I'm okay with because the show has established that's their character. I don't think it's bad writing. There's one character who I do think has bad writing, but we'll get to that this week's episode.
All right. So who do you want to bring up to talk about The Last of the Starks? What
Okay,
do
in
you-
The Last of the Starks, John drove me mad in this episode. Like, he drove me mad, but that's because that's who his character is. Daenerys is right when he's saying, when she was saying, do not tell your sister, because as soon as you tell your sister, that will start stuff. And
right, because then people, no matter whether she promises or not to tell people, will
Yeah.
find out, this will spread, and no matter what you do or what you say or how many times you kneel, it's going to have a life of its own.
yeah, and John instead was Ned Stark's son.
So I do think Daenerys is right when she says, if this gets anywhere other than between you and I and Sam and Bran, it's going to have a life of its own, and it won't matter what you do to try and stop it. I do agree with that, but I also think that it's very manipulative and very selfish of Daenerys to ask him to do that.
Yeah, and I agree with you there that it is. It just drove it.
I think that he should have told Sansa, because if you're going to have any sense of balance at all, whether she turns into the Mad Queen or not, you need people to keep her in check. And I know that Sansa might not be the best person to do that because she already doesn't like Daenerys, but I think that Jon is right in the sense that those are his family. Like, those are the people he has left that are his family, and they should know.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there.
You just know what the result is going to
Exactly.
be.
And I was just sitting there going, I know where this is going to
Yeah,
go. I
I
know
know.
exactly where this is
Yeah.
going to go. And it frustrated me because, it's the good frustration. I'm not saying it's not the bad frustration.
Like,
Yeah, it's the frustration that you should get in
Yeah,
this kind
yeah.
of drama
well,
where
because then without it, it's not a drama.
exactly. Yeah, it's the frustration of I know where this is going to go.
We all know what the end result
Yeah,
is.
exactly. And I'm annoyed that it is because I like both characters, but ultimately the journey that they have been on is one of tragedy.
Yeah.
This show is a tragedy. It has shown us it is a tragedy.
It's very
From day-
Shakespeare. It's
Yeah.
very Shakespeare in
Yeah,
that sense.
like
Which is another thing we'll get into
Yeah.
next for this week's episode too.
Yeah.
But I think that one of my biggest kind of, I don't know if I would say disappointment, probably disappointment. This is one of the one little character things that to me was legitimately like, oh, I kind of wish that wouldn't have happened, was when we have Jaime leaving.
Yeah, especially after what had just happened. So, like, you know, we got, like, Brienne got her moment with him, and I really loved
Which
that.
I didn't mind
until
he left.
Exactly. And I didn't, and now that we've seen the context of that conversation as well, it doesn't play as well as I thought. Like, I gave the show benefit of the doubt, going, when he was saying, she is hateful and so am I gave the show benefit of the doubt that he was going there to kill her.
Well, I did too. And that's why I was like, he has to break Brienne's heart so that he can leave.
Yo.
But
yeah,
it's going to pay off in a way that it didn't quite for me, but we'll talk about why I also didn't really mind it when we get there.
Yeah, but in that moment, like, I've seen people complaining that Brienne was crying. Yeah, because she loves him and she knows that he's going to die.
Just because she is very tough and she's a warrior and she can wield a sword and she's really badass. that doesn't mean she doesn't have emotions. We
Yeah.
saw what she was like when Renly died.
Yeah,
Like,
she does go through emotions.
She is an emotional, complex human being who, you know what? Whether you're the toughest woman in the world, the smartest woman in the world, the strongest, most amazing, most badass woman in the world, you're probably going to get your heart broken by someone every once in a while, whether that's a guy who's a romantic interest or a girl or a friend or a family member. Like, you're going to have that person that you went through this. Her and Jamie went through a big emotional journey together from the first time they met to where they ended up. They have a lot of history. They have a lot of background. Their relationship has grown a lot from where we first met them together. And to me, it was a very real moment of her really trusting him, she put her life on the line for him a lot, and he did the same for her. But she thought she found someone who she could really trust and really love, and who was really gonna, even if it was just in a friendly way, be there for her. And to have your heart just kind of broken like that when you're betrayed like that, I thought it was an amazing scene, even though I was like, oh, this is garbage.
Yeah, and that scene now, I want to go back and watch it again. Like, there's this season to me, I think, is going to have a lot of benefit rewatching.
I agree.
And now, once you've seen the context of everything,
I agree. I think a rewatch will do it well, and I think a little bit of time will do it a lot of good for a lot of people.
I do too. But some other things that I loved the funeral prior at the start. I think that was the moment that we need. Like, you know, I heard people going, oh, I didn't really feel emotion in that last week episode because it was all battle.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
This was the scene you needed. And it was, to me, like, I remember when we were watching the battle, I said, this season especially is one that deserves a binge.
Yeah.
Unlike other seasons of Game of Thrones where it is that at the end of the episode, okay, I want a week off, I need to think, process. I think this season has been, the way it's designed, would benefit from a binge watch, because you're going to get all those emotional moments and those character moments from episode 2 going straight into episode 3.
Right.
Not, I'm waiting a week, I haven't rewatched it yet before episode 3. And I think that does happen quite a bit. And this episode especially as well, we get the moments with Jon and Daenerys there. You get the party at the end. I loved the feast.
Yeah.
I thought the feast was handled really well, and the way all the characters interacted together. And
I do have some controversial things I want to talk about from this episode. One being the one that has turned into a meme for all of eternity.
The Starbucks.
The Starbucks cup. I don't think it was even a Starbucks cup, though. I think it was just an on-set coffee cup that they all drink everything from. And to me, the funny thing is, I didn't even notice it until Twitter turned it into.
Oh yeah, most people wouldn't have. Most people didn't.
Wouldn't have. And to me, it's just kind of one of those. I think the internet needed that little bit of a break from arguing with each other about how awful the show is this season. To have that moment. I watched Sophie Turner on Jimmy Fallon talking about it. And he was trying to blame her for it because there's a photo of her standing with the actress who plays Lyanna Mormont holding a cup. And then she brings up the fact that there's a photo of Jason Momoa visiting the set, and Emilia Clarke has a picture with him, and she's holding the coffee cup. And she's like, she was in that scene. She's holding a coffee cup in this picture. And it's just turned into this big, like, they had, what's
Davos.
his name? Davos on Collider Live talking about it. So it's been a little bit of a nice.
Well, I did see Starbucks made, I think it was something like $2.3 billion in advertise. It was the equivalent of spending $2.3 billion on advertising.
Yeah.
That's how success. Yeah, it's just wow.
Hilarious. Okay, but the other real controversy that I want to bring up, because this is a very tough topic to talk about, because there are a lot of ways you can feel about this scene, and a lot of scenes having to do with this topic matter, depending on what you've been through, what your point of view is, if you're a man or a woman, or there's just a lot of ways to look at it and feel about it. But the scene where Sansa sits down and talks to the Hound, to me, it's a very emotional moment that I think was necessary to have. And I personally didn't have a problem with the way that it was handled, but I know a lot of people do. I know a lot of people are saying it was very irresponsible to have Sansa sit there and say that she's stronger because of the things that she's been through, because she was sexually abused and because she had all of these husbands and forced into things that were very traumatic for her. And the way that I took that scene personally was that she looked at all the trauma that she's been through and she's not willing to let it make her feel weak. She's not willing to let those horrible things that can completely destroy a person not let her become the really strong, capable woman that she has become. She didn't let those things tarnish that for her and didn't let those things make her into something that was any less than she's capable of being. And I know a lot of people saw it as her saying she wouldn't be who she was without those things. And the way the writing is worded in that scene, I get those complaints because she kind of does say that the way that it's worded, but I don't think that's necessarily what she means when she says it.
Yeah, I thought, to me, that scene was powerful, and I did, in the moment, I thought it worked.
Yeah.
Then thinking about it afterwards, it was kind of one of those, like, maybe they probably should have had a female go over that moment
and make
go,
sure it
all
was
right,
written
hey,
in a way
you
that,
need to, this is where you need to work on it.
Yeah.
Like, but then I also get the secrecy stuff at the moment where they're just like, nope, no one's looking at this script whatsoever.
And I mean, to me also, you have a very trusted female actress who's doing the scene.
Yeah.
And I think, just because she wasn't uncomfortable with it doesn't mean there are women out there who aren't uncomfortable with it, but I do think that she didn't seem to have a problem with the way it was written, and watching it, I didn't really have a problem with it either. I don't know. I get why people do have issues with the way that it was worded and the way that it was written. But with the way that I took it and what I thought she meant by it and what she was saying was something very powerful. So I get both sides of it, but I think I'm becoming less and less sympathetic about these complaints because of how many there are about things that aren't as understandable as this situation.
Yeah.
Like this one, I get why it's a little touchy. Yeah, maybe it wasn't worded the best. But with so many complaints about things kind of like that, this season in particular, it's getting harder for me to...
It is. Yeah, it's getting harder for me too to be like, to start to have that rational conversation where you're like, okay, yeah, let's actually talk about this rationally, because people aren't willing to, because they're complaining about things that, I mean, at least from my perspective, that I go, no, the show's been setting that up.
Right. And we're not referring
no,
to
I'm not
this.
referring to this. I'm referring to like other moments like John acting the way he did.
Right.
Daenerys,
Which
Daenerys turn.
Those little things make it harder to actually be able to have conversations about serious things.
Well, it's
like
the
this.
Last Jedi argument
at
the moment.
It's
the Last Jedi argument where you can't have that rational conversation with someone going, I enjoyed it for these reasons.
And from my perspective, I interpreted this scene like this.
Because as soon as you say that, the argument then becomes, well, you're an idiot.
You're an idiot. You like whatever
you don't like.
you.
And it's you can't have that rational conversation with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone. There are people
I've had a couple people direct message me on Twitter today and be like, "It's so nice to find someone where we can actually talk about this and have a conversation." And I've had some really good conversations in my mentions and things like that. But there also are points where I have to hit that block and mute button, because if you're just gonna come at me wanting to yell and say that my opinion is stupid and whatever.
Well, I mean, my sister, she has not liked this season at all, but we've been able to have that actual conversation and sit down and talk about it because I have thoroughly enjoyed this season. And, you know, she's my sister. We can still have conversations.
Wow, siblings that can have conversations.
Yeah, it's weird. The other big thing from this episode, obviously, Melisandre's death. Oh, not Melisandre. Sanjay's death.
Yeah.
Big moment.
Yeah.
To me, I said this afterwards, all I wanted, especially now, especially after this episode, all I wanted when Daenerys turns around and walks away, instead of just having this anger on her face, I wish she just said, burn them all.
Yeah.
It would, especially after this episode, especially after the criticisms that a lot of people had this episode, it would have played perfect.
Which I personally still think is kind of ridiculous because she didn't need to say burn them all. Like, that look on her face, I think. Still like, I get what you're saying, but it still doesn't. The detraction of that line doesn't warrant the criticism.
Oh God, no. No, definitely not.
One other thing I want to bring up about this episode before we move on, because I thought it was a really great character moment, even though it kind of broke my heart, was the Gendry scene.
Yes.
His storyline in this episode I'd like to talk about a little bit.
Yes, definitely.
Because at the beginning of the episode, when he gets called out, you're like, oh no. Oh God.
No. Oh, where's this going?
But he gets a gift from the queen, from the merciful, wonderful, loving queen. Gives him the gift of a title and of some land. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's great. That's so good. I'm happy for him. He's always been a really great, like, he's one of those characters that's just pure, and just him and Hot Pie are like the two that are just like, okay, you can't possibly do anything wrong. It's fine. But you also know what's coming when he goes to find Arya.
Yeah, definitely.
You know that
that's not what she is.
That's not who she is, and she says it. And you even if you look back to the first season when she's talking to Ned Stark, and he tells her that she's gonna marry a lord and she's gonna be a lady, and she even back then knows.
No, I'm not.
I'm not a lady. That's not who I am, and it's heartbreaking because you know that she does care for him.
She does. She really, genuinely does love him, and it's not who she is.
She just knows that at that point, and maybe you know what, she still could have a character development where maybe someday she does want that.
Especially after what she just went through.
We'll bring that up in a minute because I have some theories. But, but at that point, that's being true to who she believes that she is and who she wants to be, and I really appreciated that a lot. That they continue to give Arya these moments of really being able to be who she believes that she is at this point and who she wants to be. So I really appreciated that about that episode.
Yeah. The other big moment that I do want to mention, because again, it was set up a couple of seasons ago and they paid it off. Varys telling Daenerys, you are going mad, Queen.
Yeah.
And she doesn't listen.
He straight up has said to her, I will look you in the face.
Well, the conversation was, how can I trust you when all you've done is this? And his response was, I work for the realm. If I don't think you are going the right thing by the realm, I will find someone who does.
Yeah.
And she says, if you feel that, tell me.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. And she didn't like it.
Nope.
She was not a fan.
To me, that was the heartbreaking moment of this episode.
I agree with that. I think it absolutely was, because he is one of the few characters, in my opinion, that you've always, not one of the few characters, but he's one of the easiest characters to look at, in my opinion, and know that's always who he's been. Mm-hmm. That's always what his motivation has been. Yeah. And he's always been that way.
Yeah. To him, his mindset has been, I'm doing what I believe is good.
Yeah.
Now, that might mean he does some things that are bad to get what to him, the end justifies the means.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas in other characters, the end doesn't justify the means. But his end has always been the greater good.
He just wants the right person on the throne. And he's always said that. And he's always shown, if he supports a leader and then doesn't believe that they're right for the realm, he's gone.
Yeah.
He goes to find someone who can do the best for the realm.
And to his credit, this time, he spoke up. He said, "No, you asked me to. I'm telling you."
Well,
and she didn't listen.
And he's tried. He's tried to talk to Tyrion about
Mm-hmm.
it, which got brought up in this episode. He's tried to find ways to say this isn't what I believe. This isn't right. Like, I told you guys that I would say this.
Yeah, and then the scene where just before Drogon gets him, he's just like, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. And that death out of all of them tonight, is the one that I think I genuinely was like, yeah, no, that's one that hurt, I think, the most, because
it hurt me too, because he's one of the few, like I said, that he's always had, I don't know if pure is the right word, but pure motives, where you've always known what his motive was, and it's always been the same, and you've always known he's trying to do whatever he can, whether you agree with those actions or not, to get to that greater good.
Yeah, he has. And so that's why, the start of this episode where he's writing the true king, I went, nope, he's gone. That's it. Yep, he's gone.
Yeah, I was like, Melisandre's prophecy is coming to get him.
Yeah, so and then that's how that one started.
And that one was tough, because, he was, that's a heartbreaking line. I hope that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I hope that this death is justified.
Yeah.
And that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Which
it wasn't.
Not going to be, but.
Yeah, well, let's get into the big one.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's talk about some big moments. We're gonna try and we'll just get to the big ones, because this is gonna take forever otherwise. Daenerys taking out all the scorpions. I mean, that to me justifies Viserys' death last week, where he was clearly injured. Like, the scorpions don't work on the dragons when they're not injured already.
Right.
And, Drogon was agile and able to miss them because he had agility.
Well, and to me, the beginning of this episode, before you see Daenerys, when you have Tyrion saying she's locked in a room, she won't eat anything, she won't talk to anyone, and he's talking to Jon Snow, and then you actually see her where she looks like she hasn't eaten and she hasn't slept, and she looks like she's starting to look like she's going a little bit crazy with just not being able to handle anything, and clearly she doesn't trust Tyrion at all anymore.
Not anymore.
And you can tell when she's on that dragon that she means business this time.
Yeah.
She's taking out as many ships as she possibly can. And she's not overthinking it for a second, because last time when she overthought it, she lost a dragon.
Yeah. And I did really appreciate just how, like, completely mad she ended up being at the end, and she was just, no, that's it, and she went crazy,
and we'll get there, because there's definitely some things I want to talk about between that and the end of the episode. To me, it was really interesting to see the outside of the city and the inside of the city, because we had Jaime go into the city, we had Arya go into the city, and we had the Hound go into the city. And then we had the forces on the outside of the city. It, I don't know. I like the way that this episode gave us perspective, because we got to see from Cersei's perspective. We got to see from the inside of the city.
Yeah, I think the episode did that extremely well, where you got this sense that, especially towards the end, there was a couple of moments where I remember looking at the watching it play on screen, and I was going, I wish they were showing the civilians. Like, they were showing the anger and the pain of the soldiers.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I wish they were showing the civilians. And then later in the episode, they did.
Yeah.
And that's where I went, oh, and you really got this sense that she's not just killing military targets. She is going after civilians. There is collateral damage in this.
You keep going back to this before we
I know.
get to this.
I'm sorry, I know.
Because I think the important thing before we get into any of that at all, what does Tyrion say to her? And to Davos and to Jon before any of this happens?
Yeah, if you hear the bells, I want to save the civilians. And
if you hear the bells, that means they surrender.
Yeah.
That means that the city is surrendering to you, and it is only Cersei and her army, basically, that are not surrendering to you, because we can't know. You can't know. The
people have surrendered.
Yes,
essentially.
and you before you even hear the bells, you hear them screaming. You hear screaming from everywhere to ring the bells.
Yeah.
And then you have that moment of tension. You have that moment where you're waiting for something to happen. You see Cersei has heard the bell is rung. You hear Tyrion hear that the bell is rung.
Everyone's just sitting there, yeah.
You see that a lot of the Golden Compass company has dropped their swords.
Yep.
And then you wait. And that's when all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Because she just goes for it.
Mm-hmm. And that's where, and in that moment, I thought Emilia Clarke acted it very well.
Yeah.
And I didn't and I thought Kit Harington was doing an extremely good job of conveying Jon just.
He did not want any part of that, but he knew that he had to do it.
Yeah, and well, I don't think Jon in that moment Jon wasn't doing anything other than surviving, because because
I don't know about that, because Grey Worm looks back at him.
Yeah,
and you kind of can't you don't know what would have happened if he wouldn't have decided.
No, that's that's what I'm meaning in terms of Jon isn't going forward and instigating any of it.
No,
the
that's
soldier,
what I'm saying.
yeah,
He had to do what he had to do.
Yeah, exactly. He's just defending himself.
To,
yeah,
but he has to.
Yeah, and that's where I did. And then when he turns to Davos and says, "No, we're out. We're gone." And then they're gone. I loved. So let's just cover some of the character moments. I'm guessing.
Well, there's
Arya and the Hound.
Yeah, they have some great moments together where they're inside the city. They're trying to get to the Red Keep. They're trying to get to their goal, because they both have people inside inside the tower that they need to get to. They're going to the same destination, which I think is done so beautifully in terms of story, because they've kind of reluctantly ended up together throughout most of their story arc until she decides to go with him back to King's Landing. And I've seen a lot of comments where people are saying that it was pointless for Arya to go into the city. And to me, that's blatantly miswatching the show, which I don't care if you're offended by that, but it basically is, because pretty much most of her journey since she had to deal with Cersei was Cersei's on her list. Cersei has always been on her list since she started her list of people that she was going to kill. And she's done all the training. She knows what she's capable of doing. And she's had a lot of her motivation be that revenge. She needs to get that revenge. She needs that closure. She knows she can be the one to do it. And in that moment, when we get to that point where they're both going to go in and do it, I think it's so wonderfully written that the Hound is the one to turn to her and say, you need to not do this.
Yeah.
Because I've lived an entire life of wanting nothing but revenge. Yeah. You see what it's turned me into. And if you go with me any further, you are going to die. Yeah. It's such a moment where you see how far both of their character development has gone, because I think part of me believes strongly that he's always cared for Arya, even when she was annoying the crap out of him way back when. But now he's looking her in the eye and straight up telling her, don't choose to die with me over something like dumb like this. She's going to die anyway. You see what's happening to this city. There's no way she's making it out of here alive. You don't need to be the one to die so that she dies. Like, she's going to die anyway.
And I did love that moment.
Well, and to me, it's so important to her character development because someone said to me, oh, she just ran away. She didn't run away. She made a very important choice that she hasn't really had the opportunity to make for a really long time. She got to choose, no, I want to live.
Yeah.
I don't need to do this. I don't need to have this vengeance agenda. I can get out of here and I can choose to do that. I think it's such an important agency for her to be able to have, to look at this situation and say, you know what? No, I don't need to do this. He's right. She is going to die. And you know what? I don't want to die. And I don't think there's anything cowardly about her looking at the situation and saying, you know what? I don't think I want to die.
Yeah, I definitely agree there that Arya's story was very much in the, this is it. This is the end of my journey of revenge there. And once we then got to see her perspective of the battle.
Right.
Where I think we are going to start seeing the next stage of her revenge.
Right. She's moving on. She's putting to rest that initial list
that
she had written, basically, because there's no one else left on that original list that we know of. Right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And either way, with this, it seems like she's kind of putting that chapter. Ow. I keep hurting myself. I feel like with this choice that she's made, she's putting that chapter to rest. And I think that to the people who've been coming to me saying there was no point of Arya being in the city, and if you take that out, it doesn't change the episode at all. I don't think that's true. I think this episode very much shows her experiencing something from a different perspective, because now that her mind isn't just completely on find and kill Cersei, she's taking a look around and really seeing what's happening. She's seeing what this destruction is doing to all of these innocent people that she's helpless to save. She can't do anything, no matter what she tries to do to keep these people alive, let alone herself alive, from a dragon that's just going for anything that's moving, essentially, at this point. And I think that when it comes to Arya's attitude towards Daenerys, it's always been kind of unsure, at least from what we've seen. She doesn't really seem to take a side as much as Sansa does. And I think this might have swayed her opinion a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is, and when those people saying that her being in the city wasn't necessary, wait till next week.
Yeah, it's
next week it will have been very necessary. At least that's what I'm thinking.
If this is gonna go where I think it's gonna go with what we've talked about, where the next episode is essentially the North.
Yeah, the North versus Daenerys. Then I mean that seems like where they're aiming for next week, and then John will have the Shakespearean tragedy of having to kill the woman he loves and blah 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 blah.
If that's how it goes.
Yeah,
down.
exactly.
Or he'll have to essentially, burn down everything he's believed in by letting the North burn.
Yeah.
And let it,
one or the other.
What I mean? It's gonna be one. He's in the middle of one of those two things having to happen. Yeah. Which I think Arya is gonna end up playing a big part in, if that's what we end up getting.
Yeah, and that's where I did really love Arya's story here, and I did love that we got to see the mindset of someone who was inside the battle running for their life.
Right.
Like we who we cared about.
Yeah.
So, when they introduced that mother and child, and then they showed them later again, we don't really like know them or anything, but we still have that slight connection. But because Arya's there as well, we know now we're really connected into that moment and scene. So we really got to see the impact Daenerys was having on the people within the city.
Yeah.
And I thought that worked extremely well. And that made this episode just even better in terms of just the raw power and emotion of it all.
Right. And I think it comes back around to kind of seeing the destruction from all of the different perspectives. You see it from Daenerys' perspective as she's riding the dragon, and you see it as Cersei is watching everything crumble around her until the last second, believing that they're going to fight for her and to protect her. And I think that's kind of a nice place for us to transition is Cersei. She not only is watching the whole city crumble around her and the forces all clearly give up or get defeated, and then we see her lose the only two real people she has left that are there to protect her as well.
Yeah, Qyburn. The way Qyburn went out was awesome.
I thought it was too.
I thought that was genuinely like he tried to stand up to the mountain, and the mountain at that point was done. Yeah. He was nope.
He was not taking orders from anyone.
Yeah, Clegane is there, and I am taking him down, and that was it. Yeah. And I thought that was really good and really well handled.
I thought it was really very much in character for the Hound too to just let Cersei walk by. He's not there. Cersei doesn't give a crap about what she does. He's very much just there to deal with his brother, which is what we've essentially been waiting for the whole show.
I mean, we got Clegane Ball. Yeah, lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think so.
I thought it was good. I mean,
I thought the way that it was shot intermixed with what Arya was dealing with was brilliant.
Yes, I thought that was very intelligent and very a way that I wouldn't have expected.
No,
and it surprised me, and I really liked that.
It was artistically beautiful, but it was also beautiful in the parallels of, they came into the city together with a common goal.
And that was the one moment I thought maybe Arya was going.
Oh yeah,
because of the way they did that, I thought maybe Arya was going to go because we knew the Hound was gone. Yeah. Like as soon as that happened,
knew he was a dead man.
Yeah, he wasn't going to survive that, and I thought maybe Arya would go too as the symbolism, but obviously they didn't. So
yeah, and then we see Jaime coming to find Cersei.
Before we get to Jaime and Cersei, can we just talk about what I think was the one scene this episode that just didn't work for me?
Sure.
Euron and Jaime.
I can agree with that to an extent. I wasn't quite expecting that to be the way that Euron went out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, to me he didn't really have enough personal history with Jaime for that to mean that much, but I mean, we all know how much Jaime always detested him trying to come into King's Landing.
I think the one character you can say who has been massively disadvantaged by the shorter seasons is Euron.
Yeah,
I think Euron is the one where maybe they should have introduced him a season or two earlier and just really given us some time with him. Yeah. Because to me, that battle didn't have the weight that it should have.
Not as much as it should have. I didn't think it fell completely flat, but I feel like as far as the show's antagonists go, he was one of the ones that I didn't really have. Yeah. Like, I didn't like him, so I wasn't rooting for him to live or anything, but he wasn't one of those antagonists where I was sitting there kind of waiting for him to come to his poetic justice end because we didn't really spend that much time with him. And I think it would have been better to somehow have Yara still around. I know she's protecting the Iron Islands at this point, supposedly, but I still think it would have been maybe more interesting to still have her in there somewhere, somehow, or something.
Yeah, Jaime being the one to do it just didn't quite...
No.
It didn't quite feel right.
No.
And I mean, that is Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones don't always give you what feels right. So
no, and that's true. It was more of kind of a circumstantial right place, right time kind of thing, which I mean, if Euron is stupid enough to try and attack Jaime Lannister, fair enough.
Yeah.
I get that.
So that didn't really quite work for me.
See, the thing that wouldn't have worked for me is if Jamie would have actually died.
Yeah, I was getting prepared then that, oh my god, if Jamie goes here, I'm gonna be pissed
because that's such a throwaway.
It is. It would have been so throwaway, and the fact that he gets stabbed twice at that moment, he's gone. Like he was going to die at some point in that episode.
But you don't know if he's actually gonna end up finding Cersei or what's gonna happen there. But
and then obviously getting to Cersei and Jamie reuniting.
And I think that even though you and I didn't get the ending that we wanted with them killing each other, because we kind of predicted for a while that they were going to be the end of each other with the kind of storytelling this show does often. But I think that to me there was a bit of poetry to it because it comes to fruition because of Tyrion trying to help them escape the city.
Yeah.
And then they end up trapped.
Yeah, and
essentially.
I did. We were talking about this earlier, where I basically was like, the show makes you think that they were doing the redemption arc, and for this season, we've been thinking it's the Jamie redemption arc, when in reality, it was the Jamie as a flawed character.
Right.
And
which I don't particularly
mind.
And
I don't mind that either. We got the Jamie tried to do a redemption. He tried. I genuinely believe that he went to the North because it was his vow. He said, I will be there to defend. Yeah. Once the North was defended, he did. He
realized that he didn't want, that wasn't what he wanted.
No, that wasn't who he was, and that wasn't what he wanted. So he left, and he wanted to come back. And at that point, it was,
I think my one thing is, I do wish, part of me does wish he wouldn't have slept with Brienne before that happened.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, okay, I get it, but part of me is like, a little torn on that one. But I'm a little disappointed we didn't get the Jamie redemption arc, but at the same time, I can completely see that just being his character. He's flawed and he's trying to be better, but not everyone can always be better. Like some people just aren't better.
Yeah.
And it was a moment of, I think, something that sums up what their relationship has always kind of been, is nothing really matters but the two of them together.
Yeah.
And they just don't really have, neither of them really have a balance without each other. Like, you can tell when they do end up in the same room together alone that it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're meaning. Yeah, it's them together. Lena Headey is a very, very, very good actress.
She's
because
incredible.
In that final moment, I felt for her.
Yeah.
Like, I really felt for her.
There are plenty of moments throughout the series that I have felt for her, even though I didn't really want to. But that just speaks to how incredible she is.
That moment and she's just going, I don't want my child to die. And she lost it and she loses all composure and she's just crying. That was a powerful moment in this episode. And
it was extremely powerful, especially when you think about the fact that she's lived her whole life being followed around by knowing what her fate is, that she's going to lose all of her children.
Yeah.
And she's been given this prophecy that she knows that she's not going to be happy. And kind of, I think in that moment, it all kind of collapsed on her again, where she was like, I have this chance to have another child, like just not wanting that final prophecy to happen where she loses all her kids and she dies. And,
Yeah, I did. That moment was heartbreaking, but at the same time, it was justified. Like it worked well. And that was it.
That's pretty much it. And even with the little teaser for next week, they didn't really give you.
Oh, they gave nothing. They gave nothing.
Usually they give you like at least a little bit, but we didn't get much of anything. We got some stuff smoking, and we got some of the Dothraki and the back of Daenerys' head, and that's about it.
Yep.
But I I don't know. I think the only thing really that next week can bring us is the North versus the Mother of Dragons and her army. Like, I don't know what else it could possibly be, because there's no way that Sansa in the North is just gonna
be okay with them slaughtering millions without. Yeah,
especially if Arya comes back and
I have no idea what next week's is going to bring. It will be extremely interesting, and I'm very curious to see who makes it out.
I am too, because we've still got some heavy hitters left. With, I don't know. I part of me thought Tyrion was gonna go in this episode this week.
Yeah, I did too. There was a part of me that went, "Oh, Tyrion might go this week," but and I think it could be next week he could go. I really think next week could be the one.
Well, I mean, especially if he does end up sticking with Daenerys, because she, said to him, one more mistake and you're gone. And you're gone.
And then he committed it.
Right. So I'm very interested to see where he ends up. I'm very interested to see how Jon feels about it, because after what he saw being in the city, he's not comfortable with anything that happened there. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. I am interested to see if Arya does if they all end up back in the North, or if the North, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of them are going to have to end up being in the same place, but I don't know how they would, because to me it would be silly to end the show without seeing Sansa again, and to end it without seeing certain people that are just chilling in the North right now, like, to just never see big name characters like that again. So who
never got their ending, really.
Well, that's what I mean. So I'm very curious, like, how that's all gonna come about, where they're gonna end up, because I have a feeling they're all gonna end up in King's Landing.
Yeah.
I'm just not really sure what the catalyst
it will be interesting.
Is gonna be for that. So it's gonna be that's for sure. And I don't really know if I'm gonna be able to handle Twitter after that episode drops.
Oh God, so no.
It's gonna be interesting. Let us know what you think, if you like us doing in the podcast form, or if you want us to do the last episode back in video. This time we're just doing it in podcast form because we've both been pretty sick and this is the easiest way for us to do this right now. But leave us your thoughts below. We really want to hear what you guys think about this. Just be respectful with your comments, otherwise they're going, because I've already been dealing with way too much stuff on Twitter for people who do not want to have level-headed, respectful conversations about this. If you're just here to scream and yell and tell us we're stupid for our opinions, then your comments won't be there for very long.
No.
So let us know what you think. If you have any theories for what this last episode is going to give us, what you're hoping to see, all that fun stuff. If you want to see what we've been talking about on Twitter, our links are down in the description. You can find our other social media there as well. Our Patreon is down there if you want to come see all the cool stuff we're putting up there. And I think that's about it.
That's it.
So until next week.
All right.
We will see you next time.
Cheers.